The Jimmy Z Show.
So today is the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr. And you've got all the speech making going on in Washington, D.C. I'm probably not going to play a lot, if any, of President Obama's speech, but I want to make mention of the fact that he brought in together, he said that what Martin Luther King Jr. did, he did for all Americans. He did for Hispanics, he did for Asians, he did for women, and he did for homos. And of course, he didn't say homos, but he said gays. And he stood there. And if you've noticed, I've noticed this a number of times, is that when Barack Obama or Michelle Obama says something about homosexuals and brings in gay people or gays and lesbians or the LBGT community, they always pause as if to make sure that you notice what they just said, that they brought up homosexuals again. And that's what Barack Obama did today. He also, and I only saw about 20 seconds of the speech, but I read beforehand that he was going to talk about economic equality. And I think it was CBS that said he was going to be talking about equal economic opportunities for the middle class, which, of course, sounds a whole lot like socialism again. But what's really amazing is that he's taking this opportunity on the date of the 50th anniversary of one of the most famous speeches in American history, right up there with the Gettysburg Address, to campaign again for his economic agenda. The guy is shameless. Now, the other thing that's going on is you've got black people out there in Washington selling T-shirts with a half picture of Trayvon Martin. It's a half of Trayvon Martin's face, the left side of Trayvon Martin's face, next to the right side of Martin Luther King Jr.'s face. And beneath that black and white picture of the two half faces, it says, Trayvon Martin Luther King Jr. And it's completely offensive. It should be offensive to black people, especially. But they don't care. They seem to be more concerned about Trayvon Martin on the 50th anniversary of one of America's most famous speeches than they are about protecting the honor and the message of Martin Luther King Jr. So I don't understand these people at all. Andrew Young called Trayvon Martin today a martyr for civil rights. And what he's done, what Andrew Young has done, is denigrate the memory of all martyrs. All the people who ended up being martyrs for civil rights have now been denigrated by Andrew Young. Because Andrew Young has called a scumbag, gang-banging, jewelry burglaring, drug-selling, nasty texting, dope-smoking, Skittles eating, watermelon drink guzzling, white Hispanic attacking loser a martyr for civil rights. And that is the state of black activism in the United States today. And it's pitiful. They are equating Martin Luther King Jr. with this scumbag little gang-banging bastard. What an insult to Martin Luther King. They're all talking about, oh, what do you think Martin Luther King Jr. would have to say about Obamacare? Or what do you think Martin Luther King Jr. would have to say about economic opportunity in the United States today? Well, I've got a question for you. What do you think Martin Luther King Jr. would say about being equated with a little nasty gangbanger piece of garbage who attacked an innocent man and got shot dead in self-defense? What do you think Martin Luther King Jr. would say to this kid? The fact is, black activists don't care about Martin Luther King Jr. They've already said that he was too peaceful. Years ago, I can't remember when that was. 5 years ago, I remember that some of the black activists were saying that Martin Luther King Jr. is fine. He's too peaceful, though. He was too focused on doing things peacefully. There's a young woman on Facebook who had something to say about the Trayvon Martin Luther King Jr. t-shirt. Stephanie Conway. She writes, "This makes it abundantly clear that MLK's message has been lost. MLK advocated advancement through peaceful means, education, hard work, and dedication. Trayvon Martin was walking home with the means to make some fire-ass lean, which was a boozy drink to get drunk with. And by the way, that's a guess. We don't know that for a fact. It's possible. So he was walking home. He's been suspended twice from school. He's committed robbery and had a Facebook full of pictures of himself with marijuana and guns. The two men could not be more different. Martin Luther King would have been sickened with how Trayvon Martin conducted himself, hurting the cause for advancement. History and historical figures lose their meanings when people don't take the time to truly understand them." I'm Jimmy Z. You know, it's so sad that black people have been completely derailed. And the people for whom the memory of Martin Luther King is the most important are letting these communist charlatans take over his memory and completely denigrate it. They are marginalizing everything that Martin Luther King Jr. stood for. And the reason why I brought up the fact that a number of years ago people were talking about, it might have been the 45th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. Some black people were talking about how it's fine, it's cool, it's nice that he said what he said, but he was too peaceful. Well, if they think that he was too peaceful and they didn't really respect him anyway, that might explain why they are willing to completely denigrate him by equating him with a scumbag wannabe gangbanger. And Martin Luther King Jr. is not my favorite political activist of all time. But I'm sitting here having to defend his legacy because the people who should be defending his legacy are comparing him to and equating him with Trayvon freaking Martin. Trayvon Martin was a nobody. He was a big zero, and he was becoming a bigger zero all the time. Over and over again, we see the black community making terrible choices about who their heroes are. Remember when O.J. Simpson, who was, as far as I'm concerned, he hacked those two people to death. His former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and what's his name, the Jewish man that she was with. Hacked them to death. But when he was found not guilty, he was a black hero because he beat the man. He beat Whitey in court. You've got Trayvon Martin being called a martyr for civil rights. And that black kid that got on his bicycle and rode around the neighborhood and found and rescued the 5-year-old girl who had been abducted. You didn't see Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton running around the country hailing this kid as some kind of black hero or a role model for black youth. No, they ignored him. They didn't say a word about him. Black radio host Tom Joyner didn't offer that kid a 4-year scholarship to a black university. No, he offered it to that thug, Rachel Jeantel, who was testifying on behalf of Trayvon Martin. One scumbag supporting another scumbag. The black community does a piss-poor job of picking heroes. I've read about Martin Luther King Jr. I've listened to Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches. Trayvon Martin is no Martin Luther King Jr.
The Jimmy Z Show.